I got a great story for you. I need to know exactly how to say Olivia's last name. Olivia Krolchek is a student. Listen to this story. She's a student at the University of Cincinnati. She turns in a paper, turns in a review. The teacher basically said, and one of the words that Olivia used was biological female. And the teacher came back and gave her a 0, angry that she used the term biological female. No, my face didn't just freeze. It didn't freeze there. Is Olivia ready? My face didn't freeze. What happened there was I'm stunned. You can't say biological female. Seriously. I mean, how can you not say biological female? Olivia, thank you for joining. We talked about this yesterday. You turned in a paper. Apparently, biological female is taboo. Huh?
Yes, apparently. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so walk me through exactly what happened here, will you?
Yeah, so I had a women's gender studies class where we had to do a feminism project and we could choose any topic. So I did mine about the history of rights and opportunities that women have had in athletics. And part of my topic was touching on how those rights are being affected by allowing men in biological women's sports. So that's where the problem was, probably because I was talking about anti-transgender in women's sports rather than pro.
Well, that's one, but didn't the teacher kind of admonish you by saying, hey, great thesis, or however you describe it, but you use the term biological female, and that is exclusionary. Oh, you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, biological women that are swimmers here, are you not?
Yeah, I am. And it's supposed to be exclusionary. It's exclusionary on purpose because I'm trying to describe a group of women just in the same way that trans women would be exclusionary of biological women.
So what has happened?
So far, a new professor has graded my work and nothing's happened with the original professor that I know of.
What did you get in the class? Because you got a 0, right? It was a 0.
Yeah, and then it was regraded, so I ended up finishing class with an A. So,
man, but all right. So, but how do I put this? If I say, if you're going to take every exclusionary term out, you're smarter than me. I'm dumb. You're smart. I went to Indiana. They just gave us degrees at Indiana. They just said, what degree do you want? Cincinnati, you got to work at stuff. I understand. All right. But if I say woman, that's exclusionary. If I say man, that's exclusionary. If I say transgender, that's exclusionary. If I say blonde lady, that's exclusionary. If I say bald man, that's it. I mean, what the hell isn't exclusionary?
I don't know. A lot of people in my comments have been telling me to use cisgender, but I don't know. I feel like biological women is a good descriptor.
Do you, are you one of, I'm not going to say those people, but being a younger person, my daughter just graduated from Indiana, my stepdaughter Harvard, so I'm not some old man that doesn't understand. In your day-to-day life, are you very conscious of, I guess, pronouns and not being exclusionary? And in that class, was it, I guess, told to you that, hey, look, all exclusionary language will not be tolerated? I mean, how does it work on a college campus in that class?
I don't know. This class must just be special because I've never had an issue like this in any other classes. And in daily life, I don't know. I don't really use pronouns because you don't go up to someone and not say their name. You don't call them she, her when you're talking to that person. So the whole pronoun thing is just absurd to me.
How did your parents react when they found this out?
They were pretty shocked as well, but they helped me with writing my emails and keeping it professional rather than getting all upset that she just failed me on an assignment. But they've been supportive.
When you go through something like this, because I love your shirt, by the way, never back down. That's awesome, really. I mean, spectacular. And it's true. There's no reason for anybody. Actually, it's sad that you got to wear that shirt. But do you feel, as a woman, that the term biological woman is offensive?
No. Well, I think it's ridiculous that I have to put biological in front of woman these days.
Right. Okay, so having said that, do you feel like you're outnumbered on campus for thinking logically, or is this more of a made-up media kind of deal?
That's a good question. I think it's half and half, to be honest. I think I've had a lot of supporters coming to me and saying the same thing is happening to me. Like, thank you for sticking up. We're tired of all of this. But then I've had other people who are like, you're transphobic and like you need to, I don't know. They've just been pretty mean people on there. But
So do you believe that Cincinnati allows diversity of thought? I mean, are you allowed to think can you think outside of somebody that's a leftist thinks, or are independent thoughts tolerated in your view at Cincinnati? Apparently not in that class, but overall.
no, definitely not. If you have dissenting views or opinions, you're probably going to have a rough grade. You're going to have a rough time in that class. And that's just because all these teachers have political agendas they're trying to push onto their students. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be unbiased grading because it's about academic integrity. It's about your work, your quality of work, not your opinions.
Well, then that brings me to this question. In a class like a woman's gender studies, or in a class that's not just mathematics or something like that, what percent of professors actually do try to push an agenda on the class?
In my experience, I've had quite a few. I've never had it where my grade is actually affected. Well, in this class, I did have another assignment where my grade was affected because of something like this. But I would definitely say that you can tell when your teacher has an agenda and you kind of just have to conform to it just to get through the class.
What was the other thing that you apparently got your grade changed or your grade downgraded for? What did you say then?
Oh, we had a discussion about privilege, and I said that I countered someone else's argument, and I said it was unfair to generalize and say that all white men were privileged. And then she docked my grade and said that pretty much that's not true.
Well, I read that. I read that. What was what was her answer? I mean, when you use always or never or everyone, that's kind of dangerous, right? And that's all you're saying, correct? What was the other side of it? What was her side of it?
If I recall correctly, she pretty much just said that it is very important to recognize that all white men were privileged, and that was the end of it.
I read that. I was, it's amazing to me. I mean, I guess I'm privileged. I don't know. Seem like everybody works pretty hard that ends up doing pretty well. You staying at Cincinnati? You good with the University of Cincinnati?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay there just because I'm so close to graduating and I don't want to have to switch schools and everything now just because of one professor. And that would also be like me backing down if I left just because one professor was like this.
What do you want to happen to the professor?
Um, I don't necessarily know. I have no intention of sending negative messages towards her, getting her fired or anything like that. But you know what? Just slapping her hand and letting her get away with this is not enough because she's going to continue to do it to other students. So I'm just going to have to wait and see what the school decides, if anything.
That's exactly right. Like Riley Gaines comes on our show. I assume you're familiar with Riley and her fight. You have to speak up because I think so many people are afraid to speak up. My friend Sage Steele is in a lawsuit for speaking up. My other friend I work with, Sam Ponder, just got called a bigot in USA Today for speaking up. But you have to. You can't just, I don't know. And I commend you for it. Thank you for speaking up because it can't be the easiest thing to do as a 20-year-old.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely rough because you have your face out there and so many people are attacking you for your looks, for your opinion, for every little thing. So you just have to not look at it and be like, okay, that person's just disagreeing with me and trying to attack me, whatever. So.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing how instead of being, having a conversation, about you or with you about the subject, people immediately go to, how you look, like you just said, or what you're wearing, or what you posted 10 years ago, or whatever, right? It's never about the actual subject. It's fascinating, really.
It is, yeah. And a lot of people who go on and tell me that I'm transphobic, that's not true because I don't care how someone else wants to dress. Like, that's fine, whatever. But when you tell me that I can't use a word in a paper and fail me, or say that I'm transphobic for saying that men shouldn't be in women's sports, that's insane.
It's absolutely insane. Last thing before I let you go? I'm sorry to keep you so long. Are you familiar with the whole Leah Thomas thing? Correct, and swimming and all that. The one thing that really bothers me as a dad, and is allowing a man in women's spaces, right? Just in their locker room. You know what I mean? Dressing naked, whatever. And that really bothers me, and I don't understand how anybody that it can have another side to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think society has lost all reasoning and decency at this point. I mean, to allow a biological man with everything intact in a women's space that's supposed to be protected and comfortable for women is beyond me.
It just well, keep thinking logically, keep standing up and fighting, and I cannot thank you enough. You're awesome. You're absolutely awesome. Keep fighting. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I mean, how awesome is she, man? I mean, look, that's got to be hard to all of a sudden you get a 0 and you look around and you're like, wait a second, I got to fight this. Man, Olivia Krolchek is freaking awesome. And if you're making comments about her, you're an idiot.